Who here is an investor? Raise your hand if you're an investor. Get one. Get a few people over here. Get one. The news is we're all investors. And so what I want to do is share some insights from working at investment firms my whole career. So a little bit about me. I've spent my entire career in the investment field, started 2 investment firms, still in the space, but now I talk to some of the leading investors in the market. And now I have a nerdy podcast called Investment Management Operations. And I also have a LinkedIn newsletter that talks about really career-oriented stuff. So I was curious about what was going on in Arizona. And so what I did was I pulled a lot of data from the SEC registry database. And I cut back all the direct deals and looked at who was allocating capital in the United States. And Arizona is clearly on the leaderboard. So if you look at, it's more in the valley, but you've got Phoenix, Miami, Boston, New York, LA. So we're clearly on the map. So what's going on from this? So I said, if you take a step back, we've got wealth management is exploding. We have private markets is coming to the wealth channel. And then we have technology. And the problem we run into is that the technology we have today cannot support the private markets and the wealth management. So there lies in some opportunity. So then I asked myself, what have I learned? I have spent my entire career talking to investors, doing diligence on managers, some of the leading investors in the world, and I learned a lot. So one of the coolest thing is 1991 is really a really interesting year for us. And it's still pervasive today. So if you look at what happened in 1991, Nirvana, that album was alive and well back in the day, as we call it. MC Hammer, remember that? He's still there. MC Hammer, Hammer Pants, Hammer Dance. Probably less pervasive. But the most pervasive person in this space is this guy. This guy, his name is Warnock. So people might ask, who's John Warnock? So the news is John invented the PDF in 1991, the portable document format. So what does this mean for us? So the interesting thing is in the institutional investment space, which is coming to the retail market, the PDF has a monopoly on the investment process. So when we go to invest in a private equity, a venture capital firm, we're filling out PDFs and it slows people down. But things are changing. So when I talk to these investors, and I've identified a few areas that I want to highlight for people. And so if you're a founder, these are the things that you might want to pick up on. So we're seeing things around AML KYC. So we're seeing an opportunity to provide and develop what I would call a unified fraud platform or anti-fraud platform. So a TSA pre-check for investors. So you would be pre-cleared to put all your information in. The old way, the current way, is to submit your utility bills and all this personal information to a third party. We have no idea whether they're cybersecurity compliant. And so there's a huge opportunity to build a two-sided marketplace. Also with IRAs. So we talked about people raising venture capital. Nowadays, you're getting direct deals. Hey, do you want to buy shares of OpenAI, SpaceX? So right now, most people are doing that in an IRA if you're a retail investor. But the problem is you don't really have the technology to do it cleanly. So it's still super clunky. So there are people out there in the banking industry, there could be an interesting opportunity to develop a bank charter or a trust charter to do that. Training and education, still in private markets. So training and education to learn how to invest in private market is different. And so there's an opportunity to actually build some training and education to not only educate your broker or your wealth manager, but also to the end investor, all of us. Secondary marketplace is another area. So when you hold an investment in private equity, it may have a 10-year duration. So if you want to sell that, today in small pieces, there's no opportunity to do that. So we're seeing some hints at people developing secondary private markets, and then also tokenization. So really putting the digital framework on valuations, capital call processing, a lot of white space here. So one of the things when I was working on this that kept on bubbling up was not what was said, but what was not said. And what do I mean by that? And so the thesis is that there's a lot of people that talk about things that really come down to self-awareness. So if you're familiar with Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, so if you're a tech firm, tech founder, I encourage you to pick up the book. But his seminal chart, which is laid up front here, talks about different ways people adopt technology. So if you're the person who bought the Apple Watch right before it came out, you signed up for it before it was delivered, you're the innovator, and maybe your great-grandmother is a laggard. So kind of thinking about that. And what I found was, if you don't know who you are, so whether you're adopting technology, whether you're buying technology, or if you're implementing technology, it's critical for you to know where you fall on that. So your stakeholders. And then how do you identify whether it be your team, if you're implementing technology, or if you're pitching to a prospect? Are they aligned with what you're trying to do? Or are they just a later pipeline thing? So I think it's important for you to identify what I would call the adoption differential. The other thing on self-awareness is, what's your superpower? And so really what I found was people talk about culture. I talk to the best investment firms in the world, and everyone says, we have a great culture. But everyone talks about that like it's a singular thing. But culture is bespoke. I love this cartoon, which was initially put together to address like standardized testing, but it still applies for all of us today. And so think about yourself. What drives you? How are you built? What area do you excel in? And really focus on it. A lot of people just don't spend time thinking about it. So the best case of application on this is Saquon Barkley. Unbelievable running back. When he was playing for the New York Giants, he had mediocre success. But not until he found his tribe and got traded to the Eagles, he just blew out of the gate. If you look at his numbers, they're phenomenal. They won the Super Bowl that year. And it's just a case study on finding that system that best supports you. So in full circle, I want to share that private markets are expanding. Technology is coming to light. And there are 5 areas of white space, at least 5. There's probably more. So founders, this is your prompt. And for investors, all of us, this is what's coming down the road ahead. And the one thing that if you can take away is really understand yourself. And the best people out there have identified the opportunity, but they've also found fit. And so the PDF has had a great 30-year run, but the next chapter is being written. And I hope some of you will write it. Thank you.